Hello and welcome to another tips and tricks video. In today's video, we'll be talking about 20 tips and tricks to make your life easier in the Oblivion Remastered game that just released yesterday, to our own surprise. Now, this tips and tricks video will be covering a variety of topics. They will not be in a certain order. I will more than likely be posting them in the comments or in the description section or the comment section, I guess, so you will be able to navigate them easier. As always, we're going to get right into this, not waste y'all's time, and let us begin. More often than not, you will want to pick the class that helps you towards the build you want to have. There are more than enough options, and honestly, it can be a little overwhelming to kind of look at the dozens of stats at your fingertips and the dozens of passives and the tons, all these different bonuses and so on and so forth. But the most important thing to remember when looking at this character creation screen is that you will have the opportunity to modify anything you want before you actually exit the tutorial. Make sure you pick a race that you have always enjoyed, either for their bonuses or for their looks and how they're going to make your character be what you want it to be, or be someone like me who picks based on what you've always picked. I've always picked a Dark Elf ever since the Morrowind days, so I always pick Dark Elf regardless of what build I'm going, whether it's a mage or a sword wielder or a sneak bow, OP-ness, or whatever. Every race has two origins, so you have more than enough options to pick from and mold them into what you want to be. Just remember to read what each one does. I mean, this is an RPG after all. A little bit of reading is needed because you want to be, you want to be as successful as possible right off the get-go. For our next tip on this video, we're going to be talking about something that seems kind of simple, but it's something that I always thought was honestly nothing more than an afterthought. But it can do you more than enough. It's just kind of saving you a bit of trouble, and that is making a save right before you leave the sewers. This is for a multitude of reasons, just a convenience thing. This allows you to, oh, I messed up my build in the first hour. I want to go back, but I can't because I don't have that save anymore. Oh, look, I have a save. I can go back. Or it allows you to make a completely different character off the same save. And then you can have different saves that are kind of different characters as long as you don't override them, of course. This is something from the original Oblivion that people used to do. And though it kind of doesn't work as well as it did before, it still works in the same sense that like, oh, I can make another character. I can go back and fix something if I need to, or I can just start over and I don't want to have to do the tutorial over again. Really simple. Nothing to this really. Make a save. It doesn't hurt anything. I did, and I'm probably not even going to make a second character, but you never know. That's the thing. For our third tip on today's video, we're going to be talking about how much the remastered version gives us, but on the topic of free DLCs, on the specific subject of all of the homes that it gives you. More specifically, the one I'm at right now, which is Battlehorn Castle. Battlehorn Castle is right outside, literally the first quest right outside the sewer. And you literally, all you have to do is walk up and kill a couple bandits because there's guards that will help you. And you can claim this entire castle with zero effort in the first 30 minutes of the game and have this huge place to yourself and have a place you can call home and do whatever you need to do. Place to store things, a place to sleep. It's just really a convenience thing. And I really don't understand why you wouldn't want to get one of these free homes, as this place is pretty cool and it really requires nothing. I have a full video on where it is and how you get it on my channel already. So yeah, I mean, most of y'all probably know who this is, the veterans of Oblivion, but some of y'all do not know. This house is free. I didn't have to really do anything for it, and it's more than worth the trouble to get it. Alright, our next tip on today's video, tip number 4, is going to be how to get a free horse right after the tutorial. Pretty much all you have to do is go to the first quest that you get right out of the gates of the tutorial, which is just to find Joffrey and give him the Amulet of Kings. Once you do that, he will give you the option to search his little chest, which I'm about to do right here, which I already looted because I'm a loot goblin. But once you do this, you can just go downstairs and talk to the guy sitting at the table. He might also be roaming the grounds because these NPCs in this game can be a little derpy, just like the original. But all you're going to want to do is just talk to him and he will give you access to his horse. Now, horses in this game, I will go on a limb to say they're a little janky feeling. But if you're one of those people that likes to ride around the horse as opposed to running around on foot all the time, all you do is talk to this guy and go out back and you'll be able to get his horse for free without any trouble. And like the castle we just talked about in the last tip, this can all be obtained in the first 30 minutes. It's a decent horse, nothing great. It's not like the Dark Brotherhood one, but it'll get you going for now. It's no secret that guilds are one of the standouts in the Elder Scrolls series as a whole. Oblivion's Remaster is no different. You have access to a vast variety of guilds that each serve their own purpose as a good starting point for honestly pretty much every class. You have access to the Dark Brotherhood, which is the Assassins, the Fighters Guild, which is more like warriors, Mages Guild is obviously pretty self-explanatory, Thieves Guild, which is convenient because we'll talk about it in a little bit, as well as the arena, which is in the Imperial City. The Dark Brotherhood can be joined by killing civilian and sleeping, the Fighters Guild by talking to one of their representatives in Coral, Shendenhall, or Anvil, Mages Guild by talking to a guild representative in any of the major cities besides the Imperial City and Kavach, the Thieves Guild by going to prison for stealing or by word of mouth in the Imperial City from the beggars, and the arenas by talking to the Blade Master in the Imperial City Arena. These can be a good way to get free gear as well as perks that will help you throughout your journey, and also, as always, a place to sleep, which will be very valuable as we'll learn in a little bit of this video. For our next tip on this video, we will be talking about why you should talk to everyone and see what's going on in the world around you. Emphasis on the rumors dialogue option. This is a particularly useful thing, especially when you're first starting off in the Imperial City. Just literally go up to every guard and ask them what the rumors are. Most of the time, they will tell you something that will give you a quest marker, or it will just simply give you something that is more or less just a point of interest. It won't always add a quest marker to your map. Sometimes you have to do a little due diligence yourself, but pretty much every person you can talk to, and especially the guards is who I target, will mostly always tell you about something that's going on in the area around you, or maybe even something that's going on in a completely different side of the world. In the first couple hours of the game, for instance, you'll get a huge influx of people telling you about Anvil and how a bunch of people died and so on and so forth. So really, this doesn't hurt you at all just to ask if you're more so inclined to explore the world, as this will most definitely help you get to that point. For tip number 7, we're going to be talking about the compass at the top of your screen. Now, it is more than useful for just telling you north from south or east from west. It actually has a pretty intricate and simple color system that kind of explains things to you in a way that is easy to kind of take in without doing too much due diligence, I should say. Now, the first color we're going to talk about is red. Now, red usually, as far as I can tell, means that it is on the other side of a door. What I mean by this is that the instance that you are in, say you're roaming around the woods and you see a cave with a red marker, which means you have a quest inside. That just means that your quest is more than likely on the other side of the door, which means you're on the other side of a loading screen. Green can mean something as simple as a general area or person, and this usually means you're actually in the instance where it's located. And lastly, blue is your personal marker, where you can mark things on the map as you see fit. The compass is also a great way to see any location around you that you haven't discovered yet. Usually these markers are shaded in black, as opposed to the greens and blues and other more obvious colors that the game has to show you for places you have already discovered. For our next tip, we are going to be talking about how you shouldn't be scared to clear the early dungeons in Oblivion. Now, dungeons in Oblivion function more or less the same as every other Elder Scrolls game, but that doesn't mean our method should be any different. More than anything, dungeons are going to be your best way to make money, be it in the Elven Labyrinths, the decrepit, creepy caves filled with spiders and all other manners of creepy junk, or the old forts that you find scattered throughout the land that have, honestly, a pretty decent variety of enemies, from bandits to wolves to goblins, even once you get into the later stages, Daedric enemies and so on, more so of the demonic type of enemies. The best part of all is there are a metric ton of these scattered throughout the land in the introduction area, and you can pretty much start clearing them from the moment you leave the sewers. This is further reiterated later in the game when you're introduced the idea of Oblivion Gates, but for the sake of this being an intro video more than anything, we'll curb that idea for now. Moral of the story, honestly, though, is don't be scared to clear some dungeons early, as they're more than worth their weight in loot and weapons and, honestly, XP. For tip number 9, we will be talking about how the enemies mirror your stat level. Now, what I mean by this in simplest terms is that the Oblivion Remaster is unique in that it follows the same system as the original Oblivion, as well as Skyrim. What this means in simplest terms is that the enemies you face are more or less attached to what level you are. Now, in the early stages of the game, you will more than likely always be against the usual cannon fodder, such as bandits in leather armor, and other unimpressive enemies whose gear is almost never worth picking up, and honestly is worth more weight than it is in gold, but as you progress, so will the enemies. What starts as enemies in base level weapons and armor can quickly turn into iron, steel, and even glass and Daedric armors late in the game. Why I bring this up more than anything is that I really want to put emphasis on picking up stuff and keeping your level kind of the same as the people you're fighting. Always make an effort to switch out things that are better than the stuff you have, unless you're running special armor. And yeah, keep on the same level as the enemies or you're going to have a rough time. What really separated Oblivion from Skyrim, in my opinion, is what our next tip is going to be about, and that is how you are able to have things in both hands, left and right. In my case, I think in this clip I have a sword in right hand, shield in left hand, but you are also able to have a spell that you can pretty much quick cast without interrupting any of your actions. In this remaster, the system works just as flawlessly as it did almost 20 years ago. This tip is honestly just a broad statement that you shouldn't be scared to have a spell ready to cast in case of emergency, or if it's a part of your build. There are a ton of spells that allow you to be as defensive or offensive as you like, as well as more utility-based ones like Clairvoyance that direct you towards your quests that should always be in your spell slot, regardless of even if you never run spells. For instance, I have Fireball, I'm fighting against vampires. Vampires don't like my normal weapons. Oh no, I'm casting Fireball. Oh no, you're in danger now, Mr. Vampire. So, yeah, just always use your spell slot. If at the end of the day, you can just put heal in there if you want. It doesn't matter. Just use it though. It's more than worth it, I promise. For this next tip, this is something that I feel like is pretty self-explanatory nowadays, and that is that most dungeons in this game, as well as most dungeons in Skyrim even though I feel like Oblivion honestly has better dungeons, are multi-level. Now what I mean by this is if you suddenly hit a dead end all of a sudden and you don't see an enemy that looks different than the others, usually it's something like a bandit commander looking person, or a necromancer at the end of a bunch of skeletons or something like that, then you are more than likely missing a level. Always make an effort, honestly, to just clear an entire dungeon, as most of the time when you do reach these endpoints with these more boss enemies, the loot is way better than just the normal guys. Keeping this one short so I can keep my rhythm still going in this video, but yeah, just make sure to clear all the dungeons. Be a little explorative. Don't be scared. I promise there's nothing that's going to hurt you. At least I hope so. For our next tip on today's video, we will be talking about how repair hammers can be a quick save when you're in the middle of nowhere. Now, what I mean by this in simplest terms is that repair hammers are honestly something that more often than not you're going to find in these random chests you see in the elven settlements or the forts or really the caves even. But as someone who never used them in the original, I will say they are very nice when you're kind of in a pickle in a cave or in any kind of dungeon, as these can kind of at least give you a little bit of armor if you don't feel like picking the armor off the enemies that you find or the enemies that you're killing in these dungeons. This is simply just a way to make sure that you are able to keep your armor and your weapons on par so you can at least fight your way to the end and get out and find a blacksmith. So repair hammers are honestly just a tip. This is a tip that honestly I think is more so just something that I think you should think about if you ever need one, as they are beneficial and you find a ton of them all over the place if you are consistently searching dungeons like our tip we said a couple minutes ago, which you should be doing anyway because that's half the fun. For tip number 13 and really tip 14 that will be attached right after this, we are going to be talking about how to really play this game to the fullest extent, and that is we are going to be a pack rat. Now anybody that is a veteran to the Elder Scrolls series or really any kind of open world RPG or open world at all, we are stealing everything. It doesn't matter if it's something that's only worth 5, 10, 15, 25 gold. In these early stages, which is primarily what this video is talking about, we are going to be stealing everything that is not nailed to the ground, including things that are red. Now you might be wondering, why do we steal things that are red? We are going to talk about that in a second. But really the whole basis of this point is you should be looting everything that is even remotely worth gold in the beginning, simply because, I mean, honestly, everything, all the good armors and weapons you can buy for some of these merchants cost a lot of gold. I'm talking tens of thousands. So you're really going to need it at the end of the day. But on the topic of stealing red items, this leads into tip 14, which I think is a guild or a faction that you should always join regardless, just for this perk. And that is to join the Thieves Guild to sell stolen goods. Now, the basis of joining the Thieves Guild is simple. We're going to go to the Imperial Waterfront District in the Imperial City. We are going to talk to the guards until they mention something about how the Grey Prince and how he is loved by the beggars. Also, I think you also have to look at his wanted poster. I think is actually part of the prerequisite too, but that might have just been the old game. So we're going to talk to these guards until they mention that the beggars in the Waterfront District love him. Then we're going to find a beggar named Puny Ancus, who should be anywhere in the area. The Waterfront District's not that big. We're going to shower with him with gold until his approval rating of us hits 80. How you look at that is that it's the persuasion tab at the bottom. And then he'll eventually say, oh, well, I know where someone is meeting, and he will tell us where to meet his contact. At which point, honestly, we will have access to what I consider one of the most useful things in the game, which is the ability to sell stolen goods. This is a barter, or this is an inn in the northern section of the map. And honestly, from this point on, you can pretty much do whatever you want as far as stealing or selling stolen goods. And no one's going to say anything to you. You're not going to get any trouble. Easy. All right, number 15, we're kind of getting into the more basic things now, or we're recircling back to them. And this is you have to sleep to level up. Now, this game is not that unique in that sleep is required to level up, but I don't believe that sleep was required to level up in Skyrim. So for those of you that are coming just from Skyrim, you do have to sleep to level up. Now, when you sleep, you get this cool little cutscene, cool little mini, whatever you would like to call this, where it pretty much tells you how many points you can spend. And at this point, you can do whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your points. Me personally, I'm going for like a rogue strength kind of assassin-y build, even though my man is in full armor right now. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. You just have to sleep to level up. At that point, it's up to you what you actually level up. And yeah, I'm going to stop right there before I blab anymore. All right, jumping back into it. Tip 16 is for the love of the 9. Watch your status effects, especially when fighting vampires. Now, why do I say vampires specifically? Because in my own just not paying attentionness, when I was playing this game about 3 hours ago, I was fighting vampires, like a clip you probably saw earlier where I was fighting I think a battle mage vampire or something along those lines. And I got infected with something that I was like, that looks kind of sketchy. So then I went and looked at my status effects, which can be found in your magic menu, and there it is right there. That is, I'm pretty sure, vampirism. And the best way you can cure this is you can either do a cure disease potion, a cure disease spell, or you can do what I do and go to any of the chapels, and you will be able to clear any of your status effects with the press of a button. And then, as simple as that, we are not going to turn into a sniveling Twilight shiny vampire anymore. We are free of the vampirism. And yeah, honestly, just remember, check your status effects, because most of the time they are negative and not beneficial to you anyways. Tip 17, which we're kind of getting into the back end of this now, and if you're still here, thanks for being here, is prioritize enchanted weapons and armor pieces. Oblivion, more than anything, always felt like a game that until you get to the end game where you're getting Daedric pieces of armor and so on and so forth, and sort of glass armor in this later tier armor and weapons, most of the things you're going to be prioritizing until that point is enchanted weapons and armor pieces. Now, you can either find these on most of the boss enemies at the ends of dungeons, as most of the time these guys usually have them, as, I mean, that's what I've always found, or they have some kind of enchanted something. Or you can be like me and buy an enchanted sword by accident, not realizing how much it cost, and then looking at your gold 5 minutes later and realizing, oh, what happened to my gold? And yeah, so prioritize enchanted weapons. Just don't be stupid like me and buy them for 8 or 4,000 gold and then say, oh, where'd all my gold go? Yeah, just prioritize them. They're important, I promise. Tip number 18, and this is a short one. This is lockpicking is a labor of love and patience. Set the tumbler as it touches the top, not before and not as it's falling back down. Lockpicking in this game is honestly one of the coolest aspects I always thought, because it was more in depth than Skyrim to me. But you're essentially just going to be hitting your set tumbler button as it hits the top, as it hits, not a second before, not a second later. Lockpicking is something in this game that I always thought was really cool, and honestly, you just have to be patient with it. I will say that auto lockpicking can be kind of wasteful, but it is a legitimate strategy if you want to go that way. But I think once you get your muscle memory down, you'll be fine. Tip number 19 is frame issues. Disable the usual culprits on consoles. Now, what I mean by this simply is a lot of people are kind of reporting that once you get into these open areas, the frames kind of get destroyed in a way that really can feel kind of jarring at times. I found that more often than not, the usual culprits are all the things you have to disable. And what I mean by this is we're simply going to go to the video settings and we're going to turn off motion blur, and we're going to turn off motion space resolution. I just kind of toggled it here just so you can see what this does more than anything, or motion space reflection, is this really just makes the reflections in the distance render in a really weird way. And I think this is probably the perfect place to show it. You might not be able to see the exact frames that are dropping at this moment, but it's really noticeable on my end with the controller. But I definitely think it's better on consoles to disable it, as you'll get less of that kind of frame drop out in the wilderness. It runs surprisingly well for a Bethesda game, I'll give them that. And our last tip is enjoy the world. Oblivion was always one of those games where, as far as an Elder Scrolls go, like I've been playing since the Morrowind days, so I've played Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. And Oblivion always felt like the story was a lot shorter than everybody thinks it would be. The story is about 7 hours if you just run through it completely, but I really do think the best part of this game is seeing the world and everything it has to offer. I do think the dungeons are a lot better in this game than in Skyrim, and honestly, you really don't have anything to lose just by kind of roaming around and doing things. You can rush through the story, but I think you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, because as you progress, you're going to unlock these things that really make the game less enjoyable. Once you get Oblivion Gates and once you get that far in the story, they will start popping up everywhere, and that can either be a really fun thing or that can be a really obnoxious thing. But as always, I hope y'all enjoyed this tips and tricks video. I don't know how we're coming up on 20 minutes, but as always, hope y'all have a good rest of your day, night, evening, and see y'all next time.